Okay, we're gonna try this again. Let me just make sure everything's looking good. We had some technical difficulties with the last live stream. Let me make sure that the sound's going and everything. Okay. All right, yeah. I'm hearing myself, so yeah, sorry about that. Just gonna be sculpting this female maquette, working on the details of the upper figure, and kind of doing a Q&A. In the last live stream, we were talking a little bit about beauty, creating things that are beautiful, and how that's more difficult than creating things that are ugly or things that produce a negative response. It's easier to get a negative response than a positive one. But what I try to do is create beautiful things, and I think that that's a worthwhile pursuit. Even if you're, even dealing with a difficult topic, you can create something beautiful that's tragic, that's beautiful because it shows an understanding of reality or an understanding of the figure in a way that provokes an emotion, even though maybe you're trying to go for something that is not necessarily a beautiful part of reality. And this works of art that come to mind are the let's see, what works come to mind for that. Well, just like how you can, there's sculptors, ancient sculptors that they would sculpt old people, and so they weren't necessarily attractive models, but it was beautifully done because it was like they understand the form, and they were able to capture something about the individual that was just so interesting and lifelike in stone. And so I'd say, like, even though they were sculpting somebody that was older, that you wouldn't describe as beautiful if you saw them, but it was a beautiful work of art because it was masterfully done. The beauty was in the understanding of the medium and the creation of something that was interesting. Somebody says, would you agree that digital sculpting skills are to a certain extent transferable to traditional sculpture? Yeah, I think they play off of each other. But yeah, I'd say, yeah, sculpting principles will play off each other, but it is, different muscle memory. So the actual physical creating of the sculpture is a skill in and of itself. And so, okay, take it, go out now, close the door. Go close the door, Rachel. Take James out. And so that muscle memory, it just takes some skill to build that up, or it just takes time to develop that, and you don't really get that when you're doing digital sculpting. It's just different muscle memory with whether you're using a stylus or whatever it is that you're using for the actual sculpting tool, which is why I recommend that if you're doing digital, also do a little bit of traditional, because finding the forms in physical space and working with your hands is I think that there is a benefit to that, even if you're going to primarily work in 3D, which, it's fine. I think there's a lot of benefits to working in 3D, but I've chosen to go more the traditional route. Though, maybe one day I'll experiment more with the 3D stuff. Let's see. Get out, Rachel. I got my kids came in. Let me take them out. They're making a mess in the background. Don't come in. Do you understand? Don't come in. Okay, let's see. Let me see if I can work on the details of the face just a little bit. So we'll have maybe for this one is kind of my, well, what will hopefully be my first actual real. Well, I've attempted it before. I've attempted realistic stone sculpting before, but it's just so much easier to stylize in stone, especially with the tools that I have. So I think I need to invest in proper sculpting tools, stone sculpting tools, chisels, and things like that. But this one will hopefully be, I'll really try to force myself to actually finish it and do it in this softer, less stylized, more organic style. Even though it's not necessarily realistic, I'd say it's still a little bit simplified, but I want it to be simplified in a way that's more, what would you say, more organic. And with this arm here pressing against the chest, and I want to kind of move the breast tissue over a little bit, and just to kind of play on what's happening there. And there would be maybe a little bit harder of a transition here on this side. Let's see. Somebody says, "Hi, I'm working on my very first sculpture. It's much harder than I thought. I'm very frustrated and feel like I just need to stick with painting." Is this normal for a first-time sculpture? Yeah, sculpting's difficult. It's just difficult. If you're, I think it's good to try. So I would set aside some time for sculpting and sculpt. It really, takes a couple weeks to be able to see some improvement. But when you learn about things like anatomy, and when you do that through sculpture, it there's a value in it that's beyond drawing and painting, in that you better understand the forms from every angle. So if you sculpt like an écorché or something, you'd have to do so many drawings to be able to get that same amount of information, or so many paintings. And so that's why I think even if you're primarily going to work with painting, doing sculpture and sticking to it for you know, maybe doing a little bit every day for a couple weeks. You really have to give it a little bit of time before you know, like, oh, okay, this is something that I like, or it's something that I don't. When it's beginning, you know, anything that you start out, you're going to be terrible at because it's new, because you don't have the experience. And so whatever it is, you're going to start off bad, and that's totally normal. But I would try to stick to it for a set amount of time and just say, you know what, I'm going to sculpt a little bit every day for, you know, for a month or for 2 months. And it, you know, anything in the art takes a little bit of time to get a feeling. And then if in that time you feel like, you know what, this isn't what I want to spend my time doing, then do something else. But if you don't give it a try for enough time just to kind of get a feel for it, then it's just going to be frustrating, and you'll give up. And yeah, I wouldn't expect too much. You know, with what I recommend for people that do the sculpting course is for them to do a quick, like, couple hour sculpture of a torso or something like that for their first assignment, and then just move on, go to the next one. Somebody says, love from India. Well, hello from over here, the States. Somebody else says, pretty normal. Make your first sculpture simple, by the way. Yeah, that's why torso is a good practice. Torso or like a facial feature study or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, it just takes time to develop any skill. So don't get frustrated. It'll come. But you said you've done painting, so if you remember back to your first painting ever, it probably wasn't the best one. Or drawing, your first drawing ever, probably wasn't great. But whatever you'd like to, I mean, whatever you want to get good at, I would focus on that. If you're not really passionate about sculpting, you know, there's lots of other things to do. Though, of course, I always recommend people try sculpting because that's what I do and what I teach. And so I always recommend what I do just like everybody else does. So. But it's definitely not for everybody. Because it's difficult. It's like the marathon running of art, where it just takes more time to develop things when you're working from every angle. Practice makes perfect. Yep, exactly. Repetition is the mother of skill. Yes, just doing it. That's really what it is. Okay, thank you, and thank you for the comments as well, you all. Somebody says, when approaching a sculpture of something such as xenomorph, which has dorsal tubes, you would approach the armature differently as to accommodate for them early. Let's see, a xenomorph, which has dorsal tubes, would you approach the armature differently as to accommodate them early? I guess I don't understand that question very much. Approaching a sculpture of something, dorsal tubes. I guess it depends on what material you're using, and if you're planning on making a mold and casting it, or like firing it in that material, or yeah, I just don't have. Maybe I guess you might be talking about a specific like sci-fi type creature. But it really depends on what you're doing. If you're doing something really difficult, then you might consider using Sculpey. If it's something that has like tentacles or things like that, then you might use Sculpey and some and wire armature, or an epoxy clay. I want to get some epoxy clay. There's some that I've put, I actually put some as like a product that you can link to that Walmart has in the videos, but I want to get some in one of the videos where I was talking about epoxy clay. I linked it as a product, which I've tried to start doing in some of the videos, putting products that I'm using or that are related to the types of clay or tools that I'm using. And I'd like to try the epoxy clay. It looks fun. It's a little bit more expensive, but you get a finished sculpture that you don't have to cast. So it's beneficial in that way. Xenomorph is the creature from the Alien movie. Yeah, don't they have like, do they have like tentacles or something? I don't remember. But yeah, it depends on the material you're using, what you want the final sculpture to be in. If you're going to cast it, then, you know, that becomes very tricky, very fast. Let's see, I'm trying to make sure that the hand doesn't grow too large. I have the tendency, well, almost everybody, no, I shouldn't say that, but I have the tendency to make the hands too large, so I gotta watch myself. And if they're getting too big, then I have to change something. Come on out, don't come in. Close the door, I'm recording. Come on in. Close the door, don't come in. Go get mom. Somebody says, hey, you're wonderful. Thank you, appreciate it. Let's see. Yeah, this is the part that's going to be difficult in stone, is like the hand and the, well, I guess just the whole figure, the face. Everything's difficult. But I'm hopeful that I can create something interesting and beautiful. When I transfer it to stone, it's so much easier, you know. In clay, you can push and pull. You can add it on and then take it off when you make a mistake. But with stone, it's so unforgiving, and so it is more nerve-wracking, and the time investment is a lot more. Like, you know, this is just making the maquette, and then I actually have to do the sculpture in stone. So it's a much bigger time investment. I'm from Iran and just started sculpting with your videos. Well, that's great. I hope you upload your work to Proco.com. It's free to create an account, and you can share images of your sculptures so I can see your work and give you critiques. And I try to do that with people that, if you just comment in the assignment section on the sculpting courses, on the free video lessons, if you haven't invested in the full course, that way I can respond and give critiques and encouragement. And I try to do that. Every once in a while I go and check those. Just taking little pieces of clay and trying to add them where I feel like still needs some. Clay. Great work. How tall is this piece? 12 inches? Yeah, it's about there. 12 inches, or about, what is that? Around 20 centimeters. Somewhere around that. Or is it 30? I don't remember. Let's see. Yeah, probably about 12 inches. But the piece of stone that I'm thinking of putting this in is, it's like 30 inches tall, so like double or a little bit more. So when I transfer it, it's going to be a little bit different. Somebody's asking limestone. The piece of stone I'm thinking of is marble. It's a Carrara marble piece that I purchased from sculpt.com. Well, I went to the location of the guy that owns sculpt.com and purchased some stone from him, which I haven't done a lot of, but now I need to sculpt those pieces. Despite figure sculpting, I am doing some simple clay projects recently too, like pendants. Will that help with my sculpting skills? Yeah, anything to just move clay around and get used to like developing the forms. Being able to sculpt simplified forms is gonna help. It'll increase your understanding of just how to move things around in clay and how to use the tools. So yeah, if you're struggling with the figure and you haven't tried just like sculpting some simple geometric shapes like boxes and circles in clay and spheres in clay, then you might try that and just try to try to sculpt a ball as perfect as you can, or like a box as perfect as you can, and that will give you some experience. Somebody says, hola, good job. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let me zoom out a little bit so I can work kind of all over. that way you guys can see when I'm moving all over the figure. Then as soon as I as soon as I zoom out, then I see something I need to do on the face that probably would have been better if I was zoomed in for you guys. Nose. Are you working from reference? I had a reference at the beginning, but I don't know where that reference is now. It's probably on my phone if I was to look it up. But right now I'm just trying to make a good-looking sculpture. Not really worried too much about following the reference exactly. Any tips on smoothing and blending the clay perfectly? Yeah, I just did a video, the most recent video on the channel, of the tip that I recommend for beginner students, which is to smooth out the clay against the form instead of along the form. So like instead of coming along the arm like this, like how you normally would just naturally, for some reason we like to come along the form, but instead of that you want to roll your tool over the form, and that's like one of the biggest things where it's just a really simple thing, but if you did that, you would notice that you're able to find the forms just a little bit easier and smooth the clay out in a way that just looks better. And it's something that, you know, it's not intuitive. There's no, at least I can't think of any like logical reason why smoothing the clay out against the form would look any better than going with the form. But for some reason, it just really does look a lot better. Somebody says, great. Thank you. Actually, I don't know what you were referring to, but I assume it's my sculpture or something like that. It says, thank you, Andrew. I'm going to check out that video soon. Yeah, I hope you do. It just released, so when YouTube sees that there's a lot of engagement on a new video, then they push it more, and so I appreciate anybody that watches the videos when they come out or has the notification bell so that they can check out the videos as I release them. That's helpful and greatly appreciated. And that video should be a good, just a good general tip for texturing. Somebody says, do you have any pictures of your original armature, or could you refer to me to a video? Yeah, I think there's, I don't have any pictures of this one, but there's a video on this channel that's, I think it's like inexpensive wire armatures or something like that, and that's the type of armature that I use. So if you just search armature in this channel, there's a couple videos that show you the process of making these armatures, and it's the more, I think it's, actually there was a recent video I did, the simplest wire armature, or how to make a simple wire armature, something like that, and that's the same technique that I used for this armature. And it's great to know how to build wire armatures for the figure. There's also a different method on the Proco 3D YouTube channel. There's the method that I show there, which is a little bit more complicated, but it's also a good method. So either one of those, I've taught several methods to make armatures, and so whatever method works for you. But I recommend trying a couple different methods. But the ones I teach are ones where you only need the wire. I don't like armatures where you require some epoxy or other things. Just because, you know, the more stuff you have to get, the more complicated it is, and so I prefer just keeping it simple. Just wire, aluminum wire, and some pliers with wire cutters is all I use for building my armatures. Zoom into the face again. for this sculpture, we'll probably have the eyes closed. Eyes closed or looking down makes them a little bit easier to sculpt. Is that cheating? Maybe. For this one, I really wanted to go for, simplicity, but a more organic simplicity rather than the geometric, simple, abstracted sculptures that I've done in the past in stone. Somebody's not happy. Okay, well, I think I'm gonna leave it there for now. It's coming along slowly, but I made a little bit more progress. Hopefully next time I'll get even further along. And yeah, if you're interested in sculpting, I hope you check out my sculpting courses. That's what that's how I provide for my family. So I appreciate that. Somebody says I'm enjoying all your art. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I hope you create your own art. I hope you, you know, create beautiful things as well. So, okay, thank you guys. As always, stay creative, stay productive, and I'll see you guys around in another video.